shipments and thresholds, coming up with 4 ways to get your order point. Calculate it, ASQ, 5 high, manually set threshold minimum, using the best answer out of those 4. Now, that's a lot in a day, and 2 things I want to say. We will take all of this that we did today. 2 reasons. A, I'm an old follower of Train the Trainer programs, and I'm a big believer that just to get it, people need to see it 3 to 5 times, to go out and really use it 5 to 7 times. If you notice some of this stuff, I repeat a couple times. I want you to take it back and get it. I will come in tomorrow and take an hour and review all of this. So you see it a second time, but the second part, reason I do it, we spent a whole day doing it, and there's a lot there. But it's not as much as you think. Once you start seeing it, you go, oh, it's the same stuff. And I'll take it and put it all in an hour just for you to see and go, God, he really went through that whole day, really the whole day, in about an hour. I'm not as overwhelmed as I thought I was. That's all I want to do. We took a lot of time to explain it, but it's kind of like, you know, in high school they took 3 weeks to give you algebra, or 3 months. You got to college, they gave you 3 days, but you were able to grasp it because you already had that background. All right? That'll be tomorrow, and you'll see it a second time. Let's talk now about the profitability side. Got a question here.
Sorry, just before we move forward, can you explain the raw?
Raw is just calculated. That was just, what I put up here is calculated order point. I think I dropped my story in that. Infor called me, that was Next Trend back then. They said, what should we call this? And I just caught raw order point was the calculated usage during lead time. That's a bad term. I said sometime let's change that to calculated order point. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now let's go talk about the what and how much, really the line point and EOQ. How do we minimize the freight, cost to carry, and cost of purchase? It's now time to buy. We've hit the order point. How we do it most cost effectively. All right, so first off, I'm going to push hard on this concept. What and how much? The time between replenishment. That's what this is really geared on. This morning I gave you the milk example. How much milk did I need to get? Now when I asked you about it with products, all of you looked at me. But as soon as I turned it to milk and we go to the store once a week, and I only want to go there once a week and we use a gallon a day, you whipped out that answer of 7 very quickly. That's the first concept. What is the timing? How often do we plan on going back to this vendor, or how often do we plan on going back to my central warehouse? When I transfer or purchase, I have to transfer or purchase enough to what? Take me out to the next time I want to do that. If I've got a 30-day order cycle and I only buy 2 weeks above order point, what's happening 2 weeks later? It's below order point, so I want to replenish for service, but I'm nowhere near my target because it takes 30 days. Watch the games that we play. It's based on targets and cost of purchase departments. If I can make a target within 60 to 90 days, that's what I'm going to base my order cycle on. If the target's so big, it doesn't make sense, it's so small it's a give me, or it doesn't exist, I'm going to base it on what's the fastest I can run my purchasing, receiving, put away in AP, but not bury them. The story that Eric, okay, I thought it was Eric had brought up. It was that spelling, not E-R-I-C, the E-R-I-C-H, right? Very good. So anyway, the line point assures all products are replenished that are within the cycle. So remember, this came up on the last break. What's really kicking me in the butt to place a PO for service? Were the items below order point? But then we went out and said we better include the items between order point and line point. Why? They're going to go below order point before the next time we plan on going back. If I've got 4 gallons of milk in the fridge, I still need to get 3 when I go on Saturday. Otherwise, I won't have enough to make it. So I'm filling into what I have and how many more I need to get to cover that order cycle, enough till the next time I'm going to come back. So within the cycle. Ordering up to the line point assures coverage until the next planned replenishment. That's the idea. Order cycle, review cycle, transfer cycle, call it whatever you like, is calculated where I'm trying to make a target. How long does it take for you to make this target? I do $10,000 a month. They have a $5,000 target. I could cut a PO every 2 weeks. Everyone there? Now I can go out farther. I could do it every 3 weeks and go above their target, but I can't plan on buying every week and hitting target if it takes me 2 weeks to hit target. All right? And it's manually set if, again, where we were just at, there's no target to go for it, or it's so small or big we're not going to go for it. I'm going to base it on what's the quickest I can run my cost of purchasing departments. So I might start it at 30 days. And if they're keeping up, purchasing, receiving, put away in AP, What am I going to do? There's no target involved with this one. I'm going to move it down to 21 days. And then if they still keep up, I'm going to move it to 14 days. And eventually what's going to happen? Ooh, I can feel the pressure. They're starting to get behind. I'm going to take the 14 and move it up to 16. Doesn't have to be equal weeks, everyone. Slow it and stabilize it. What was the bottleneck? Oh, they can't keep up in receiving. Let's implement barcoding for them and do some barcode receiving. Oh, now they can keep up. Now I'm going to take my 16 days and start going down again. I'm going to just keep going down until I feel the crunch, move it up slightly, fix the bottleneck, and keep going down if I can do it. Everyone following this? Okay. I want you to get the most turns you can within your company's infrastructure that can handle it. Eric hit it. Turns are great, but when everyone's dying because of it and we can't keep up, for every turn that was extra that we thought we were making money, we were losing money. All right, so line point, order point plus usage during demand or usage or demand during the cycle. So again, and here's one I'm going to push hard. If you're in a service environment, fill rate's important. Review cycle does not represent when the product line will be reviewed. If you've got a 2-week review cycle on something, so I checked it on Monday, that doesn't mean you can forget about that for the next 2 weeks, not even think about it, and check it in 2 weeks. Because what are you going to find 2 weeks from now? The day after you placed the PO 2 weeks ago, someone spiked you. You've been out of inventory this whole time, and you're going, God, I wish I would have looked at that last week. You're going to switch over to, I look at worthy items below order point every day, and then buy the day supply I need to get me back in the sync with my cycle. That's in a service world. You cannot use the review cycle the old way if you're service-oriented. Let's take apart EOQ for a second. So here we've got a product that we have usage of 100 per year. Our cost is $10. Our cost to carry is 24%. Cost of purchase is $4. So I just want to go through what we've done in the past. So here's what we did. If we go and buy it once a year, so we bring in what? $10 times 100, we bring in $1,000 worth of product once a year. So if we bring in $1,000 of product on January 1 and it sells off through the year, where are we at December 31st? 0. Everyone there? So what's my average inventory again? $500, right in between. So $500 times 24% carrying cost. If I buy this product just once a year, I'm going to spend $120 in cost to carry, and I'm going to spend $4, one PO, putting it on, receiving it, putting it away, and paying for it. My total cost, $124 between cost to carry and cost to purchase, and I'm going to get 2 turns per year. All right? So you go, okay, I got it. My total cost to carry and cost to purchase, which we're trying to find what's the optimum quantity to buy, $124. $500 in June, I bring in another $500 because I sold it off. My carrying cost is going to be $60 because my average inventory is now only $250 at a pop. I brought it in twice a year, so 2 times $4. I'm going to spend $8. My total cost to carry plus cost to purchase, $68. 4 turns a year. I buy it 4 times a year. So now every 3 months I buy it. So my carrying cost is $30. 4 times 4, $16. It's 30 and 16, $46. I'm going to get 8 turns. Now somewhere back about 100 years ago, whenever, someone did the analysis this far and then stopped and said, what as a result? See that, Grant? The more often we buy it, the more that we turn it, the more savings we're going to have. It's going to cost us less and less. Everyone with me? And that's where everyone stopped and just went down this analogy for the last 100 years. Well, let's keep going through this and make sure that stands true for us. Here we go. If I buy it 6 times a year, every other month, $20, $24, $44, 12 turns, getting better. Uh-oh, what just happened to me? And now I'm going to buy it just every month. A lot of you are buying weekly. Every month, only going to be $10 cost to carry, and that's what drove most of you. Look at that $110 I saved, right? 120 versus 10, I saved $110. Well, you forgot is 12 times 4, $48 in cost of purchase. Oh, I just took what is that? I just took $14 off my bottom line by buying it once a month instead of every other month. Now, we did this at a couple companies. We started multiplying this through. The owner got sick and said, stop, okay? He started, remember I talked about the turns-eccentric guy? Stop. I've heard enough, because he goes, we're killing our bottom line because I've tried to get my guys to buy, oh, I didn't even put it up there. I'll move it back. 48 times a year, every week. And we just worked that through. 48, even if I say your cost to carry 0, you're only carrying a week's worth. Everyone with me? 48 times $4, let's just call it 50 weeks for easier math. My brain's getting tired. $200 in cost of purchase. This would have been $200 if I bought it weekly. I'm spending $200 where buying it just every other month, I'm only going to spend $44. And a lot of you guys are what? We're not only eroding the bottom line, we're killing ourselves to buy this every week. And I'm going, you're nuts. This stuff, this particular one, we should be buying every other month. You won't kill yourself, and we'll have a better bottom line. And we're not going to stock out because we're still using order point to drive when we're going to buy. Is this coming home? All right, so here's what EOQ did. It actually turned out to be 18. I'll show you that. It said, anytime you get ready to buy, 18 is the optimum quantity to minimize the total cost to carry, cost of purchase, just a little bit over 2 months supply, which we could kind of see that here. And it says, ordering less more often will cost the bottom line. And here it is. It's actually 5.48. It's $21.91. Cost to carry, $21.91. It's $43.82 if I bought 18 at a crack every time I bought this. But again, the point is, almost a 2-month supply every other month versus a lot of us what we're trying to do today. Now, if I stop right there, does everyone understand what EOQ is doing? That's all this is doing. It says, what's the carrying cost? What's the purchasing cost? Adding the two together. Because I'm not trying to minimize this. I'm not trying to minimize this. I'm trying to minimize my total cost. And that's all EOQ is doing. All right? So everyone get this? Everyone there? So here's what it's doing. It just said, hey, if I buy one and my cost to keep is 24%, I'm going to spend this much. If I buy two, my cost to carry, buy three, it would actually be slightly curved. But you got the idea. The more supply I buy, sit on it longer, the more cost to carry I'm going to spend, right? So if I only know about cost to carry, what do we try to do in purchasing? Buy as little as often as possible. Everyone there? Then we acknowledge cost of purchasing. Well, if I buy one and it's $4, I only buy one on that line, that's $4 cost of purchase. If I buy two on that same line, it was $4, whether I get one or two, now it's $2 each cost of purchase. If I buy 100 of them on that same line, divided by 4, I don't know what, I guess that's 4 cents or whatever that math would be. So now what do we think about if we only know cost of purchase? What do we think about doing? Buy a whole bunch and don't do it very often, right? Well, we want both worlds. So all this EOQ is doing this. It says, here's what we'd spend on cost to carry. Here's what we'd spend on cost to purchase. Just add it up. If I buy one unit, how much is this and this? And it turns out to be $124. So again, all we did was add up the total cost. We look for the trough. And what do you think the trough is? The EOQ. It just says that's where our total cost to carry and cost of purchase is the lowest. Everyone's going there. Let's turn EOQ on. And then they ask that question, all right? Well, what is it, Grant? And all of a sudden we say, well, it's the square root of 24 times the average monthly usage times your cost to carry, or our cost, divided by your cost per unit, divided by your K cost. EOQ is very proven. It works very well. Need some fences around it, which I'll show you, but it's very, very effective to help you maximize your bottom line, least total procurement cost, all right? Don't let the square root throw you. It works. All it's doing is finding this trough. And again, we normally put fences around it and say, don't let EOQ be less than 1 week. If you got something that costs a penny for a bazillion of them, it's going to say buy 23 seconds worth and repeat it again in 23 seconds. We're going to come back and say, no, always buy at least a week's supply. And if you got, I'm sorry, it was the opposite. If you got something that's really, really inexpensive, it's going to say buy 23 years worth. We're going to say, nah, don't buy more than a year. If you got something that's really, really expensive, it's going to say buy 23 seconds worth and do it again. We're saying, no, never buy less than a week. So again, we're just wrapping some fences around EOQ. So between line, well, I won't go all the way back, between line point to get me up to the next time I'm going to replenish, EOQ, kicking those two together of how many to get up to line point compared to EOQ, take the larger of the two, we're out there minimizing your total freight cost to carry, cost to purchase. We're multidimensional, not just minimizing one of your factors. Hey, we just saved $1 on freight and spent $2 on cost to purchase to do it, or spent $2 on cost to carry to do it. That's not where we want to be. Anything here? Oh, I need, because we want to catch it on that DVD, Roger. I know. It'll only take a moment.
Much of this analysis is on the product line itself, or the item level instead of a product line level. So
Yep, this is done at the item level.
item level, exactly. Yet we could make a minimum with the supplier or the vendor for the product line every day. So the review cycle could conceivably be every day, but we'd only order that particular item
Here's what would
week.
happen. You're right on. This is what I call, and I think you'll actually see it right here, is what you just asked. Roger wants to make sure he's understanding how many POs we're going to place and how many lines are going to be on each PO. Thank you. You led us right to that next slide perfectly. So here's what's going on. First of all, now again, I don't like your order cycle of 1 day, but I'm going to switch it to 7 days because I wouldn't ever recommend, even though I can make Target every day, doesn't mean I want to make Target every day. It's too costly, okay? Now again, if you've got your 13 cents cost of purchase, buy it daily. So if you got full VMI EDI, I agree with your daily. If there's any human touch, buy weekly or weekly, or you're spending more than we need to. But the point is this. If I've got an order cycle of 7 days, and I don't use any EOQ, and there's 200 items in this vendor's mix that we buy, theoretically, what would happen every week? 0, now again, theoretically, order point, line point, 7 days, where no matter where I'm at, I would eventually place a buy to get this kicked off, and it'd go up to here, 7 days, all 200 items. And then 7 days would cross by, they'd hit order point, and all 200 items would show up on my PO again. So every week, theoretically, I'd be buying a PO with 200 items. That's the order cycle part of it. Now EOQ kicks in and says, well, you know what? There's a bunch of these items, and I'll just make this up. There's 100 of these that they're really inexpensive, and it says buy 2 months worth, EOQ. And there's another 50 of these that are not quite as inexpensive, but still, and it says buy a month of those. Then the other 50 are rather expensive. What would happen? It's still going to buy every week because that's my order cycle. So the first time through, it'd buy theoretically all 200. But now, on that PO, what would it do? These 100, it bought 2 months worth. These 50, it bought a month's worth, and the other 50, it bought 7 days worth. So what's going to show up a week later? Just those 50. And then eventually, a month later, I'll have my other group finally fall into the group and says, now it's time to buy another month of those. And a month after that, my other 100 would fall in. So I'm still going to cut a PO every week. The difference is I'm not cutting a PO every week for 200 items. I'm cutting a PO every week for probably 20 items, different quantities. There's your core expensive stuff I'm going to buy every week because I don't want to keep it on the shelf. Then EOQ is going to scatter the other stuff accordingly, and it's going to trickle in. I think that's what you were asking me or confirming. There's another question to go with it? Will you bring him the mic back for me a second, Derek? Oh, he's not going to hold back cocktail hour. All right, Roger. First one's on me, guy. I'll get one for all of you. All right. Ask me at the break, but that was what you were looking for. If you don't use EOQ, you're theoretically going to buy all those items every review cycle. EOQ says, this stuff here, it's so inexpensive, buy 2 months and only deal with it every 2 months. Now, really what's going to happen, and then I'll move on. 20 of these is going to buy a year's supply. You won't even see those 20 for a year from now. Another 10 of them is going to buy an 8-month supply. EOQ's all over. But out of 200 lines, we've shown this before, most, if you're using EOQ well, mid-level line, your average PO is probably going to be 20 to 30 lines. I'm still going to bring over all the 200 over the year, but not all every week. And I can work a 30-line PO much easier than a 200, and that's what cost to purchase is saying. Okay. So, there's where we were. And again, that's what we're saying, number of POs and lines per PO. It's going to EOQ and review cycle dictates how many POs I'm going to place a year. EOQ determines how many items are going to be on this PO every time I place it. So now, what are the things that need to come together for profitability? First off, we need a good transfer order cycle. What's my vendor target? Pounds, dollars, piece, cubes. What's my target? Let's calculate the order cycle. If there's no target, it's an easy target, or there's a no-way target, we're back to what's the fastest I can run my cost of purchase without putting them into the ground and getting them behind. Then we're going to look at freight and cost of purchase and transfer minimum reduction. That's what this is doing. It's looking and trying to minimize freight and cost of purchase under this world, minimizing the two out there versus cost to carry. So that's line point. Now, I believe Fax has this, A+ has coming, SX hasn't got, we've had to trick it. A lot of you are importing. So theoretically, if we need at 25 to get up to line point, but we're importing out of Asia and they won't fire the factory up until you order 500, you really want your PO to do what? Even though I only need 20, I can't send the PO less than 500. That's what we'd call minimum run. Well, who's my importers? You know what I'm talking about. Now, what we've done if you're on SX, we've gone in and manually set EOQ to the minimum order quantity. Even though we're losing the facts of EOQ, our minimum run has always been higher than EOQ, what it calculated, so it becomes a factor that will make your PO round up to minimum order quantity every time. So how much to get up to line point, or up to line point? Compare it to EOQ, minimum run, and then again, vendor and transfer rounding at the end, and this is how it comes up with the quantity for your PO. So again, I just want to make sure we're all understanding this, because I'll show it again tomorrow. But your system does 3 checks, one system does 4. It says, if I'm here, how many get up to line point? If I'm here, how many get up to line point? If I'm here, it says, don't buy me. Just making sure we're out there. It's below line point. So 1, if we needed 20 to get up to line point, and 2, our EOQ was 40, how many does your system need to buy? It's going to buy the 40, always the larger of the two. The 40 assured we are at least getting up to the next time we're going to buy, and it says it's a cost center. Now bringing back yours, Rogers, since I only need 20 to go up here, this one won't show up the next time. It'll be on every other PO theoretically. Then it's going to go do rounding, and if package quantity happened to be 50 on this, it's going to round it to 50. All right. If it was 40 to get up to line point, and EOQ was 20, it's always going to buy up to line point. 40 says, do I have at least EOQ? I do. So I'm going to buy the 40. Then it does its rounding. There would be one more in here. If you were an importer and you had minimum run, it's going to say, how many get up to line point? 40. Am I at least getting EOQ? Yes, 20. Oh, they need 500 to even fire up the factory line. Your MOQ would then say, move it up to 500, do the rounding, and this is what would end up on your PO or transfer. This is how it's doing the math. Everyone good? Okay. So that's what we're talking about here. And again, I knew Roger was going to ask about that, so I stuck that in last night to make sure we would talk about it. A few other things just to get us wrapped up here, kind of bringing us home. And we've talked about product status. I'm just bringing it all together now. If you don't stock it, none of this applies. This is what we're talking about, stock items, right? Order point and line point. Orders needed to have an order point and line point, but there's 0. So after lunch, we talked about what we should stock or not, and then what we should stock applies to everything we've talked about this afternoon. You have order as needed. Different systems call them different, but this is an item that we don't keep on the shelf, but we can get for you. A do not reorder in some fashion is we no longer can get it. It's discontinued. And again, I'm going to call it a non-stock. And someone came up at lunch and said, what's better? If I can add products on the fly and let my folks add them on the fly, or having an order as needed, even though we don't stock it, that they keep using over and over, which one's better? The one they keep using over and over because I can track history and hits, line them 2 up. If I let folks enter things on the fly, we never figure out because they all enter them differently unless you have a really good add procedure to come wash them back out. So if you can do it, use the order as needed methodology, meaning it's a record on the system we use, we just don't stock it, but we can queue up history. Frozen items, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, but remember, you can freeze order points and line points. That's how a lot of people did it in the 80s and 90s. I know some of you already heard you. Heck, Grant, that's what we're still at. We converted 10 years ago. We brought all over. I had a company last year. They called and they go, it's broke. Our system doesn't work. It's broke. Went through all of this 3 days. No, it's broke. I go back and check. They went back and checked, and it sure was broke. What had happened? They had converted to SX 10 years ago. They loaded all their order points and line points off their old system. They froze them, said, we'll come back and fix this up. We just don't know how it works. And 10 years later, they were still using order points and line points from 10 years ago. It was broke, all right, you guys. But it was how they were using it. I will talk about tomorrow when we should freeze items, but in today's world, with AIM that we have, maybe 3 or 4% of your